See, that's the problem with you women. Y'all don't got no, y'all don't got no broom in y'all hands. Y'all, you know what? Y'all shouldn't even be on YouTube right now.
That's funny.
I mean, I mean,
Listen,
I mean,
room
look
in
me
my
in the
hand.
eyes. Look down when you see a player. You see me? Look down when you see a player. That's what I'm saying.
If someone is like talking on, let's say, whatever's toxic, because sometimes people overuse that word too, and that's really irritating because then nothing's toxic if everything's toxic. But it's like, but then that's because, of course, there are going to be those toxic channels, toxic panels and shows. But then that's like when it's really important that other people, whether they get visibility or whatever, they can bring in an alternative perspective that's actually helpful, actually constructive. And that's what's needed. But like maybe those people might not get, and I don't know for sure, but they might not get the attention they deserve if it wasn't for this toxic thing. I don't know. It just depends. I mean, this goes across so many different facets of life, but yeah.
Well, oh, go ahead, Shan.
Oh no, I was gonna ask another question, but go ahead if you have to add to this.
See, that's the problem with you women. Y'all don't got no broom in y'all hands. Y'all, you know what? Y'all shouldn't even be on YouTube right now.
That's funny.
I mean,
room
look
in
me in
my
the
hand.
eyes.
Actually,
Look down when you see a player. You see me? Look down when you see a player. That's what I'm saying. Now,
I can.
I can't even be serious doing this.
I mean, do women really want women like that though? Let's just be honest.
What's that? Fighting with them?
Yeah.
Or
Fighting or wholly submissive to where they don't have an opinion.
Submissive to where they don't have an opinion.
There will be some guys that want that. I think that's a minority of guys. I don't think most guys want that. I think that we want submission, but I don't think that we don't want you to have a brain. That's insane to me, because the balance to the yin is the yang, and you kind of got to have that to have a healthy relationship, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I think some guys want it. I think there are some that's like, if you don't, it's everything I say my way or the highway. Like there's you can't argue that. There are some guys that are that way, but I don't think that's the majority of guys. No.
Do you think that people well, I had another question first, but I'm gonna ask this question. Do you think the problem is it's all about, I think somebody mentioned this about the clicks, all about the money, and people are just gonna forever be chasing the dollar. Oh, I got the most likes on this, let me keep that going. So they don't care about anything else. Even if they don't believe it themselves, they just keep it going because it brings in
my personal thought is I think that there are a lot of shows that way, but the one thing I really enjoy about the Lapeef Network is I think there's a show created for that, but most of the shows on the network are solutions based. Let's have real conversations, and let's move this thing forward for a solution. Now, again, there's a show or two where it's all about let's see how much.
Well, we know
how far we can push it, right?
But that's the most important show. People will tell you that's the only show that really matters. They'll be like, "Oh, you're not on the real show."
That is crazy. That's true. That is true.
Like, you're not on the real show.
We've all been invited to the real show, but
no, no. This
for everybody.
It's not a space for
For
everybody.
for me, this show, and I actually really enjoy King's Talk when it's civil and under control. But the shows where people are allowed to speak, say what they need to say, and even Trigger Mike's show, midday so far every day during the week.
Show, yeah.
You're given the opportunity to speak, but it is, hey, validate, substantiate your argument. Like we're gonna dive into it, speak, and let's go ahead and substantiate it and have the conversations around it. And again, but I don't think that there are enough of those shows. Most of them, I think, want the clicks. They want the clicks. I think most of them want the clicks. Not to suggest Trigger Mike doesn't want the clicks. I'm sure he does. But it's let's have real dialogue, and that's just my preference.
That's my
preference. Trigger Mike. I'm really feeling your show. I like it.
We're talking about that.
Yes.
Okay, Trigger Mike. Oh, one day I saw it. I was like, okay, I like it. Let me try it again. The next day, I was like, oh, he daily. Okay.
I agree with everything you're saying, but the fact that you're having the conversation.
Everything is just
No, well, yeah, I mean that's
Well,
the
yeah, I
pilot
personally don't look for people to
experience.
agree with everything. I think
But
perspective is what's
and
missing.
that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say. I can understand your perspective is articulated, and I can agree to disagree and be okay with that. So
Mhm.
I do. I really like it. It doesn't seem like it's bashing anybody, but it is calling out, what needs to be discussed. So good job.
Do you
Thank
think
you.
that it's just hard for each person to understand that we're just made different and they were made so different for a reason? Women aren't supposed to think like men aren't supposed to think like women, and there's supposed to be like a balance, so to speak. And sometimes it's just we don't respect each other's role or
Well, yeah, I think it's 100% a Western problem though. Like, sometimes we get on these spaces and we're not supposed to really look at the chat. JR tried to coach me like, don't look at the chat. I'm like, man, I've been looking at the chat since I started on YouTube, and I'm never gonna stop. But I don't change. I don't change what I say depending on the chat. Sometimes I'll bite back at the trolls, but I don't
I
change
always
what I say. And the one thing I feel that's missing. Where was I going with this? The one thing I feel is missing. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
women and men being different, like that's how they're supposed to be. Like just
Yeah,
they're made differently,
and we
basically.
don't
yeah. And so we are made different, but the weird part about it is sometimes I'll read the chat and they'll be like, Trigger Mike, you sound like an a-hole. I'm like, I don't sound like an a-hole, actually. I'm not a domineering man. I'm not a misogynist. I'm just a man. And so many Western women have forgotten what that looks like. They've forgotten what that is defined as. I'm just a man. I
And
like literally, if you were in the barbershop to hear real male perspectives, absent of you, absent of your presence, it's just what we talk about on my show. This is how men really feel, right? Marcus will tell you like everything we talk about, like literally, we just regurgitate to you out here. This is the way we talk to each other. So, I think so many women have not only had that, other women of the agenda, like the feminist agenda, actually have to suppress this message to make women so feel powerful. You got to, dumb down what men say, dumb down what men are in order to play up whatever, more masculine, radical feminist agenda you have. But yeah, I think we're just men out here talking, and a lot of women don't know. They've never heard a man talk like that before.
but what's interesting though, and I think everyone will know what I'm talking about, is when most people can agree men and women different. Women emotional, men just
Logical.
logical, yeah, whatever. But then you know where I'm going. That a guy will, and doesn't look the same every single time, but a guy will go at a woman, and then she'll, for better or for worse, I don't know if she should act like this or not. It's always different, but she'll react in some way, and then the men will be like, "Oh, you're acting masculine," but then at another time, they're like, women are supposed to be emotional. It's like, but what do you want? Like, do you want women? Now, of course, we can all agree on this panel because I would say we're all pretty good here. We can agree that there is a way to express emotions as a woman, and then there's a way where you're out of pocket. Like you need to like manage yourself for a second.
Yeah.
But do you guys know what I'm talking about when you hear that? So it's like, yes, there's differences, but like men can't be men, women can't be women. But at the same time, in this Western culture, what does that even look like? Do we even know?
Listen,
I think
Yeah, that's it.
Go ahead.
We had a
I
conversation.
I think it's like we don't confuse a woman being emotional with masculinity. We don't confuse it. What happens oftentimes, especially in these spaces, women, a lot of some women will dive into that. You ain't s. You ain't like your opinion is wrong, and get out of pocket with a man. Me, I'm of the opinion that I don't even correct women. I really don't. I believe it's up to other rational women to say, "Hey, ma'am, you are out of line." That's what I actually think, which is why I typically will say I will speak to men much more than I'll speak to women. But we don't confuse
Mhm.
the masculinity with the emotional side. It's when it's like, for example, on both Thursday and Wednesday night panels, I saw women that took that emotion, heightened it, and basically said, "Shut the fuck up. It doesn't matter what you think." That's when you're jumping into that masculine side, because typically we men, I could tell Trigger Mike he's an idiot and this is why, and I could say it just, I would say the why, and he would understand. I'm not necessarily getting out of, like, I'm not getting emotional with him. This is how we talk. We're very direct, we're very blunt, we say what we have to say, and we move forward. And when a woman does that, when you add that into the emotion, it it's quite masculine, to be honest.